In a city by the Volga, among factory chimneys and Soviet apartment blocks, lived a man with a secret. His wife suffered a long and slow death, his daughter followed in pain, and then came neighbors, co-workers, and lovers, each falling one after another. The reason was never clear, yet the truth was always present. In a glass of water, in a piece of fish, in a simple cup of coffee. This is the story of the Yaroslavl Poisoner, Vyacheslav Solovyov. Vyacheslav Solovyov was born on March 12, 1970 in Yaroslavl, a city 250 kilometers northeast of Moscow. His parents were factory workers living a modest life in Soviet Russia. Solovyov grew up unremarkable, blending in with other children. He attended local schools, played in the courtyards, and showed no signs of the darkness that would later consume him. In 1988, at age 18, he was drafted into the Soviet Army, serving in the internal troops, a unit tasked with maintaining order. During a training exercise, he fell from a watchtower, suffering a severe traumatic brain injury. The accident changed him. He began experiencing uncontrollable bursts of anger, a trait that would follow him. While recovering in a military hospital, a disturbing incident occurred. According to unverified reports, Solovyov argued with another patient and smothered him with a pillow. The death was covered up, no charges filed. Solovyov returned to Yaroslavl, his record clean but his mind altered. Back home, Solovyov married Olga, his high school sweetheart who had waited for him during his service. They settled into a 3-room apartment on Leningradsky Prospect, a gift from Olga's stepfather. In 1989, their daughter, Nastya, was born. To those around them, Solovyov was a devoted husband and father. He wrote to Olga during her hospital stay saying, "You and Nastya are my whole world. I love you. I'll prove it with actions, not just words." Olga was a homemaker, tending to their home, raising Nastya, and enrolling her in art school. She also cared for Solovyov, who had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, requiring regular insulin and dietary control. Solovyov enrolled in a polytechnic institute in Yaroslavl, but dropped out soon after. He turned to business, opening a small company that provided a steady income. To neighbors, the Solovyovs were an ordinary family, living a quiet life in a quiet city. In 2001 or 2002, Solovyov's interests took a sinister turn. He watched The Young Poisoner's Handbook, a film about Graham Young, a British serial killer who used poison to kill undetected. He followed it with Agatha Christie's The Pale Horse, which detailed the use of thallium, a heavy metal that mimics natural illness. Solovyov later confessed, "I was fascinated by the idea of killing without leaving a trace." He began studying poisons, combing through library books and early internet forums. He attempted to create his own toxins from plants, but failed. Instead, he purchased 400 grams of thallium sulfate and sodium azide from a local factory in Yaroslavl for just 2,500 rubles. Thallium was ideal, odorless, tasteless, and deadly. Its symptoms, hair loss, nausea, organ failure, could pass for common ailments, evading detection without specialized tests. Solovyov began experimenting. He tested thallium on himself, taking small doses and countering them with antidotes he'd researched. Each test taught him more about the poison's effects. He then turned to the family cat, mixing thallium into its food. The animal died quickly, its death unnoticed by those around him. Solovyov's experiments were successful, and his focus shifted to human targets. In 2003, he chose his first victim, his wife, Olga. After 14 years of marriage, he grew tired of her. The reasons were unclear, perhaps a fight, perhaps boredom. Following an argument, he began adding thallium to her food. One evening, he laced a piece of fried fish. Olga ate it and fell ill, landing in the hospital. The dose was small, and she survived. Solovyov continued, poisoning her with small amounts over months. Olga lost weight rapidly, her hair thinning. She attributed it to exercise and acupuncture, unaware of the truth. By December 2003, her condition worsened. She slipped into a coma and died. An autopsy revealed liver and kidney failure, ruled as natural causes. No one tested for thallium. Solovyov mourned at her funeral, his crime undetected. At this point, Vyacheslav Solovyov had lost all trace of humanity. Testing poison on himself and his cat was terrible, but targeting his wife Olga was a cold, deliberate act. His obsession with invisible killing consumed him, dragging him into a darkness where only his next victim mattered. His next target was his neighbor Mikhail, a heavy drinker who irritated Solovyov by passing out in their shared hallway. When Solovyov's car battery was stolen, he blamed Mikhail and decided to act. He invited Mikhail over, offering vodka and a sandwich topped with red caviar laced with thallium. Mikhail arrived but left early, caught in a drinking binge, and didn't eat the sandwich. Solovyov stored the poisoned caviar in the refrigerator. Tragically, his 14-year-old daughter, Nastya, found it and ate some. That same day, she was rushed to the hospital. Her hair fell out in clumps, her legs became paralyzed, and her condition deteriorated. Doctors conducted numerous tests, taking blood and tissue samples, but found no answers. Solovyov knew the cause but stayed silent. He later admitted, "I was too weak to tell. I was afraid they'd find out about Olga." Nastya endured months of agony and died in August 2004. Solovyov told neighbors she took her own life, grieving her mother's death. The community believed him, and no one suspected poison. After Nastya's death, Solovyov closed his business and sold the family apartment. He moved in with Irina, a woman who worked at a market on Uritsky Street. His father, Valery, a worker at a local oil refinery, used his connections to secure Solovyov a job as a supply engineer at a construction company. But Solovyov's urge to poison persisted. At his new workplace, he tampered with the office water jug, adding thallium. Employees began falling ill. Nausea, abdominal pain, hair loss, joint pain, vomiting, diarrhea. They suspected contamination from the factory's industrial environment. The company conducted tests, finding no heavy metals in the air or soil. The illnesses stopped when Solovyov ceased his actions. One co-worker suffered severely, hospitalized multiple times with paralyzed legs. He survived but was left weakened. In April 2005, Solovyov turned on Irina after 6 months together. He later claimed, "I didn't want to kill her. I wanted to scare her, make her sick." He added thallium to her coffee. The first dose made her ill, but she didn't change her behavior. He increased the amount. Irina died in the hospital, her organs failing. Solovyov told doctors it was encephalitis from a tick bite. They accepted his explanation, conducting no poison tests. He escaped suspicion once more. His father, Valery, grew alarmed. Too many deaths surrounded his son. He contacted the police, urging them to investigate. They dismissed his concerns. Valery later said, "If they'd acted in 2005, how many lives would have been saved?" Solovyov learned of his father's actions and threatened him, saying he was on the edge of a cliff. In the fall of 2006, Solovyov began a relationship with Oksana, a single mother and acrobatics coach with 2 young daughters. He moved in, presenting himself as a reliable partner. He drove Oksana to sports events and cared for her children. Valery tried to warn her, but she brushed him off, trusting Solovyov. He soon targeted her family. During a visit to Oksana's grandmother in the village of Krasny Profintern, near Yaroslavl, he poisoned a jug of mors, a traditional berry drink. Oksana drank it and fell ill, mistaking it for the flu. Her strong health allowed her to recover. Her elderly grandmother was not so fortunate. She died in March 2007, her death attributed to old age. Solovyov's next victims were Oksana's sister, Natalia, her husband, Evgeny, and their 1-year-old son, Sasha. He contaminated their household water jar with thallium. Sasha was the first to show symptoms, collapsing and struggling to breathe. His parents called an ambulance, and he was rushed to intensive care. Doctors fought through the night but could not save him. Sasha died the following morning. At his funeral, Natalia and Evgeny began experiencing similar symptoms: vomiting, fever, weakness, Yaroslavl hospitals, lacking advanced labs, initially diagnosed pneumonia. Treatments failed, and their condition worsened. Samples were sent to toxicologists in St. Petersburg, who identified thallium at levels 10 times the lethal dose. Evgeny later recalled, "The doctors showed me my plasma. It was black. They couldn't believe I was still alive." Through plasma exchanges, draining and cleaning their blood, both survived, but Evgeny was left permanently disabled, his mobility severely impaired. In August 2006, Solovyov poisoned another victim, Captain Shcherbakov, a police officer. Earlier that year, Solovyov was involved in a brawl at a Yaroslavl cafe where he stabbed a man. Shcherbakov interrogated him, asking tough questions that angered Solovyov. When the captain stepped away, Solovyov slipped thallium into his coffee. Shcherbakov's partner drank from the same cup, suffering heart palpitations and dizziness, but surviving. Shcherbakov died that month from a pulmonary thrombosis caused by the poison. Solovyov received a suspended sentence for the stabbing and continued his crimes undetected. By 2007, the pattern of deaths became impossible to ignore. Police began investigating Solovyov. They searched his workplace, finding a computer disk with notes on creating zombies and printed stills from the young poisoner's handbook. They followed him to an abandoned warehouse near his company, where they saw him digging. After he left, they recovered a vial of white powder confirmed to be thallium. In May 2007, at age 37, Solovyov was arrested while attempting to retrieve the vial. Days earlier, he had been caught on camera spraying gas in his workplace bathroom, a reckless act that drew attention. Exhumations of his victims, Olga, Nastya, Irina, Oksana's grandmother Sasha, and Shcherbakov, revealed thallium in their remains. During interrogations, Solovyov confessed to all 6 murders. He spoke for hours, detailing each killing with unsettling calm. He described preparing 4 types of poison, testing them on himself with antidotes to survive. He admitted visiting the graves of Olga, Irina, and the grandmother annually, a ritual he kept secret. He initially hesitated to confess to Shcherbakov's murder, but eventually admitted it. His confessions were cold, almost mechanical, showing no remorse. A psychological evaluation found Solovyov sane, fully aware of his actions. His trial began in Yaroslavl. On the first day, he attempted suicide by cutting his wrists in the courthouse. Guards intervened and he was hospitalized. After recovery, the trial resumed. A second evaluation confirmed his sanity. His father, Valery, disowned him, demanding harsh punishment. "I cursed him," Valery said, his voice filled with betrayal. Solovyov's mother attended every hearing, unable to accept her son's guilt. In his final statement, he offered no apology. Instead, he spoke of his health, type 2 diabetes, hepatitis, high blood pressure, and group 2 disability status. He acknowledged his crimes but pleaded for leniency, saying, "They want the maximum penalty, but we're not in the Middle Ages with the Inquisition." The court was unmoved. In June 2008, Solovyov was convicted of 6 murders, committed with extreme cruelty and multiple attempted murders, including Natalia, Evgeny, Oksana, and his co-worker. He was sentenced to life in prison and ordered to pay 1 million rubles to the victims' families. Solovyov was held in a Yaroslavl detention center awaiting transfer to a maximum security colony. He never made it. In December 2008, he died alone in his cell. The cause was phlegmon, a severe infection of the skin's tissues worsened by his uncontrolled diabetes. Medical experts suggested his repeated self-poisoning with thallium may have weakened his body further. A detention center worker shared a haunting account. Before he died, he confessed to me. He said the souls of the children he killed, Nastya and Sasha, were pulling him to the other side. He said he was guilty and God would punish him. He begged for a priest to confess his sins, but he fell into a coma before I could arrange it.